No, sure. No, happy to share. I think when you're on a mission to see the end of workplace suffering, it would be kind of pointless just to keep this information to yourself. So there are a number of things. The first thing that is there has to be leadership commitment. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but often I think certainly in my experience, leaders have been good at saying they want culture change, but then they give you no money and no time. You know the kind of thing. It's like, oh, you can have everything you need to get this done, and then it's never forthcoming, and you have to do it, on the smell of an oily rag. And so there has to be leadership commitment. And do you need everybody around the leadership table to be all in? Listen, in an ideal world, yes, I'm an optimistic realist. I recognize that if you can get, 4 out of 5, 6 out of 7, 8 out of 9, yeah, it's a good place to start. And you can't have any cynics around that table. If you've just got one or two people that just don't believe in this work, it's never going to work. They're always going to be, and in some scenarios, I've seen it where they've actively worked against the culture work because, it's in their best interest to maintain the status quo. So there's got to be that commitment. Aligned to that is they have to understand what culture is. And we don't really educate people on what it is. And so you'll see this in a second when I talk about training managers. So leadership generally don't understand it, and it's not their fault because we don't teach them. They're kind of picking stuff up as they go along, which as I did when I was a senior leader myself. It's only when I started taking an active interest in what culture was, what the facets of it were, that I became a scholar of it, for want of a better word. So we have to teach them what it is, and that way what we get is that common understanding of culture. So you bring everybody's views together and you say, okay, well, this is what it is, the definition of it. We make sure that they understand the difference between, what I would consider those core backbone elements to a culture. So vision, purpose, values, you want to see those things in every culture, but also the subcultures as well, because every great culture is made up of great subcultures and teams and departments and divisions, and just how it's all pieced together. The next thing to say as part of all that is to understand that leaders are the role models of culture, and they almost have to relinquish day to day control, for want of a better word. And that's hard for some leaders to do. They want to tell people that this is the culture, and that's not the way it works. Culture is built from the ground up, not from the top down. If you build it from the top down, you get a very command and control culture, which means people lose the agency, which means they don't feel empowered, or there isn't the safety for them to do the work that they need to do to make a lasting change. And so being a role model is all about behavior. It's all about making sure that what they project is what they want to see back. The next part, once you've got the leaders done, it usually takes me, I can see you're about to ask me how long does that take? Listen, I'll take all the time I can get with leaders. For some, I only get half a day, and I'll make sure that I cover everything I need to in half a day. Like a day's ideal. I'm not really going to take leaders off site for 2 days unless they're a brand new leadership team, in which case it's a great opportunity for us to do some team building as well. Then the pathways open to you really depend on the team size then, and the work that I'm doing is if it's at an organization level or a team level. If it's at an organization level, and you're typically over 200, 300 employees, then you have to train the managers. You train managers on how to build culture. So, a good management program, it's all about self-awareness. It has to start. Self-aware individuals are the building blocks to great teams. So it starts there. Then we teach them about culture and how it's made up. So we have that common language between them and the leaders. It's about understanding behavior. Again, they're role models for their own employees, but how to you kind of behave with discipline and integrity and respect, and to be collaborative and communicative, all of these things. Then we talk about collaboration and how to make a plan about how you're going to get work done. I know it sounds obvious, but we don't do that. And also, how to make time for creative thinking. This is where innovation lies. Innovation is what keeps businesses fresh. It's what keeps them moving. It's what keeps them profitable. New ideas. And so that management training is done over 2 months, and in our organisations we're great at creating these special leadership programs for like 20 people, the future leaders. But the people that actually make the difference day to day culturally are middle managers, and they get no training. The expectation is when you reach a position in the hierarchy, you just know how to build a great culture, and they don't. It used to be me. I wasn't taught. I had to pick it up. So for larger organizations, I really invest in with the internal learning development team, or HR, people and culture, and we design a program that's fit for them. Because what you can't afford to do with any kind of culture change is flood your department with consultants, because that has an adverse effect on the culture. There's only so much work you can do up front to analyze where you are right now, and once you've got that report, then it's really about developing internal capability. The other route, so when I'm working with smaller teams, we'll just bring all of the team off site together for 2 days. And so sometimes one of those managers that we train, they might say, listen, I've got a team of 70 people. Can you come and do 2 days to help us define our culture? Which we're more than happy to do, of course. I work with lots of startups where they've only got about 50, 60 people, but at 50 people, it starts to scale. Not everybody knows the founders in the same way. So it's really important from a founder perspective that you actually evolve the culture. And so 2 days to basically agree how we're going to behave, how we're going to work together, get to know each other, on, kind of from a personality perspective, because we don't want any judgment. We want everybody to understand everybody as well. And yes, you can use personality surveys, but they're only a guide. What we've seen for these kinds of things is there's a lot of, does it work? Doesn't it work? Also, if you're neurodivergent in any way, these things don't apply. What we're actually trying to do is build human connection. We want compassion, we want respect, we want understanding, such that when we give each other feedback, it becomes easier to do and easier to absorb. And so they're the two ways. And then the last thing that you really need then to make the culture change easier to do is there has to be accountability. What happens when someone behaves obtusely to the culture that you've designed? There has to be that. Because otherwise what you'll end up doing is allowing one person to undermine the safety for everybody else. And that typically what's happened. And this is when you have culture change projects, it's always a bit of a problem, because we make culture, culture has an end date, but it doesn't. It's perpetual. Culture's always there. Part of the education, so when we design the training programs with clients, is we make sure that the evolution of culture is built into the management training, so they know what they have to do to, kind of maintain that sense of vibrancy. And without jeopardy, then you can't really have a sustainable, vibrant culture, because there's always going to be that one person. And often they don't want to be that one person. They just lose control of their emotion, and they put themselves in a position where they've set a bad example, or they've done something unethical. And this is where you need a process to make sure people follow the process. But all the great cultures lose people. They don't keep exactly the same people for years and years and years. They only keep the people that contribute to the culture. They keep the people who are good human beings that work hard to do a good job. They keep the people who are invested in their own development and don't just look to the company to provide all of the time. And they keep those people who are just good human beings. They seek to elevate others. They're not all about the glory. It's not about ego. They're not narcissists. And these are the kind of people that we want to sustain the vibrant culture, and we want to lose through natural attrition, through their own accord is even better, or through performance management, the people that routinely look to undermine the safety in culture. So these are the steps that I take to make culture change easier to do.